Hey everyone, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to Little Mountain Ranch and to my very sadly neglected high tunnel. My high tunnel is probably in better shape than my garden, which we're going to head out and check out in a minute. I also have hundreds of seedlings that should have gone into the ground 2 weeks ago, and I haven't done it. And I haven't done it for a very good reason, one that I don't regret for a second, and that's that we had our grandson, who is almost 3, here for the last couple of weeks, and little ones just require a different level of attention, of course, than older kids do, as far as just keeping them safe even. And they can only spend so much time out in the garden with Nana before they want to go and do something else. So we made the decision we were just going to kind of let go of the garden and some other projects that we had going on while he was here, and just enjoy our time with him, which we very much did. It was just the funnest. It also did remind me of what it's like to have little ones. I get asked all the time if I have any advice for young families who are trying to manage a homestead, or even just learning how to can and garden and all that kind of stuff, and raise a young family at the same time. What I'm specifically responding to when I answer in the way that I'm about to answer that question is people that have access to being able to buy food at the grocery store. I'm not talking about people which there are millions and millions in this world, where their actual ability to eat is dependent upon them growing food. I'm talking about where it's a choice. My advice, to be perfectly honest, is just not to do it on a very large scale. If I could go back and do it again, if I could tell my say 25-year-old self, if I could have given myself advice, I would have said, put a couple of raised beds, grow some greens, grow a few tomatoes, learn the skill and the art of gardening, but don't try to do it on such a large scale that it takes away from time with your family or increases your overall stress, because raising kids in this day and age is hard enough without adding the extra pressure of trying to maintain something that takes a lot of work. It just quite frankly does. Now, my life is in a completely different stage. I don't have any more young children at home. Most of my kids are grown now, so it is a different life now. And also the other thing is that it is also my job sharing this information here on YouTube. So it's just very different than it was when my kids were young. So that's the advice I would give, is just don't stress about it. Make sure that if you're starting to feel overwhelmed, like say you just got in the homesteading life and you have goats and chickens and cows, and it's starting to feel overwhelmed, or you're starting to feel overwhelmed, just back it up. It doesn't mean that you're quitting. It doesn't mean that you're not going to do it again in the future. It just means you're reevaluating your situation and you're going, I've taken on too much. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. In fact, I would say that that is probably wisdom. And I will say that even Dan and I, at this point where we have a lot more time to focus on growing food and building up the ranch and all that kind of stuff, we have a lot more time for that. We have actually made the decision this summer to step back from raising chickens, turkeys, and pigs. We don't have any on the farm outside of our laying hen, so we're not raising meat birds, turkeys for Thanksgiving dinner, or pork, which I'll admit, it was a little bit of a hard decision to do, because we have been raising all of those things for, upwards of 20 years now at this point. So it was a big decision to make, but we just evaluated where our life was at, where our kids' needs were at, all of those kinds of things, and we just realized that we really needed to take a break from doing that this year. And we feel really good about it. It's opened up a little bit more space in our life. We're in the position where we can go buy pork from another farmer. We can order some meat chickens in bulk from somewhere that are already processed, and all of that part is all done, which I'm really grateful to be in that position to be able to do that this year. But I just really want this to be an encouragement, and not even for those of you, because I know there's lots of you out there that don't homestead, but I'm sure there's other things in your life that you can look at that you could probably remove from your life, maybe not forever, but for right now, that would help decrease your overall stress. And friends, stress is a killer. It is not worth it. It just is not worth it. So I just wanted to share that with you as we go about and try to get everything back under control in my gardens and my high tunnel. Today, I just wanted to encourage you to maybe, take a look at your life and see if there's anything that you can take out to help make the current stage that you're in a little bit easier. So let's get right into this situation right now. I have some planting to do in the high tunnel. I have quite a lot of planting to do in the high tunnel. But before we do that, we really need to take care of the massive amount of weeds that we have growing in here. So no matter how well I compost my cow manure, I always end up with these two particular weeds in the compost that I make. It's just something that I know is going to come up. It's going to happen. And even though I did not top dress these beds this year, all these weeds are actually weed seeds from last year, which is just crazy. I kept it very well weeded in here. Nothing went to seed. So these are just seeds that are latent in the soil. But the two weeds that I always deal with are pigweed and lamb's quarters. So lamb's quarters is actually edible. It's like, it tastes like spinach. It's quite good, but I don't want it to grow in here in these beds. So we're gonna take care of that. And I have a really simple method for weeding in my high tunnel. Normally, I don't let the weeds get anywhere near this high, so this method works better when the weeds are really, really small. So I might need to pull some of these out by hand, but it really should only take me about 20 minutes to do the entire thing with this little nifty tool. This is my very favorite garden tool. This is a stirrup hoe, and I love it. And I have multiple of them because it is just so efficient at removing the weeds. So we're gonna go through here, get all these weeds taken out, and then I'm gonna plant, I think, and then we're gonna do a little bit of pruning on a tomato plant. And I'm doing this because we had that Zoom call, the garden what did we call it? The Grounded and Growing Gardening Zoom Q&A. We had another call last night, and I had someone ask me about pruning tomatoes. So I promised her that I would give a tutorial on how to prune tomatoes, or how I do here in our climate. So let's get to doing this. Let me show you how we use this particular tool here. All right, so I just plunked these little marigolds in here because I had them and they needed to go in the ground. I actually have 6 more. Turns out marigolds are very drought tolerant because the ones that I have over there, actually here, I'll just show you, absolutely bone dry. Look at them. So anyway, we're gonna get those ones planted. So I'll be a little bit more delicate around here, but when I am planting my plants, I try to space them so that this can fit in between, which just makes it so much easier for weeding. So all you do with this is go along like so. And it pulls the weeds out. So you can see some of the dirt is going down on my weed barrier. I actually keep a broom in here and I just sweep that back up into the beds when I'm finished, so it doesn't really cause an issue. I will mention this because you might notice this and someone's probably going to ask. You can see a few little munch marks on these peppers. This is from grasshoppers. Fairly confident it's grasshoppers because I've seen a few in here. We don't have a huge issue with grasshoppers, thank goodness, but I always get a few that come in and munch on my peppers, which is fine. So basically what we're doing is we're just pulling these out. You can come along afterwards and remove these by hand if you want. I never worry about it. They're fine. They just will decompose back into the bed again, as long as they haven't gone to seed. If you have weeds in your garden that have gone to seed, definitely remove those ones. I want to show you me doing this in real time rather than speeding it up so that you can get a genuine idea about how long it would take to weed a bed like this. So if you want to skip ahead after I'm finished, go ahead and do that. But I just want you guys to get an idea of how much time this actually takes. So like I said, spacing is really important here to make this job easy. And you'll get better at it the more that you do it. I do have a couple of sunflowers that are coming in down there, so I'm gonna skip those parts and do those by hand. I always let some of my volunteer sunflowers, those that have seeded from the year before, come up in my high tunnel, but I am going to move them around because I had a few come up in this row last year and then they basically blocked off the pathway because they got so huge. Sunflowers do amazingly well in a high tunnel. So I'm just going to be careful around that spot. But the rest of it, we'll just whip through and get it done. sunflowers. So there you go. As you can see in real time, that took 5 minutes, maybe less than 5 minutes. So obviously I'll have to go through and do a little bit of a fine weeding around the base of the plants. But just to kind of get the brunt of it done, this is an awesome tool. So I'm going to go around and do the rest of the plants, and then I'll show you what we have to plant, and we'll get those in the ground. I'm definitely hot now. I'm going to open up the back door. So I'm done, and that took total from start to finish around 30 minutes or so to do. I still have my piles that I just swept up to scoop up and put back in the beds, but that shouldn't take me more than a few minutes. So now we're going to go through some tomato plants, and I'm going to share with you how I prune and why. Okay, so the reason that we're going to prune our tomato plants is that I have actually done a comparison where I have let a plant just completely do its own thing, and then I have pruned it. And the difference in the size of tomatoes, the health of the plant, the lack of disease or issues with the plant is incredibly significant. So I highly recommend doing that. Also trellising your tomatoes, which I know is pretty obvious, because their natural way of growing is they actually fall down onto the ground, and along the stem of the tomato plant it will root into the ground. So its natural way of growing is actually sprawling out on the ground and vining out everywhere, not actually going up. The reason that we put them up is, one, for easier harvesting, but also to keep those tomato diseases at bay. Most tomato diseases are going to come in through the soil, so we want to make sure that the bottom of our plant is pruned up so that there are no leaves touching the soil. I have not done any pruning on my tomatoes at all this year yet, so they are definitely in need of it, and some of them are going to start needing to be tied up to my trellis, or like the tomatoes along that side, strings hung down and tied on. But what we're going to do here is we're going to pull off everything on the bottom. So this is going to seem pretty brutal when I'm doing it, but tomato plants are surprisingly hardy when it comes to pruning, so that you can prune them pretty heavily at all at once. So you can see this leaf, even though it's way up here, it's touching the ground. So we're going to pull that off. We're also going to pull all of the tomato branches. So this is the main stem. Excuse me. This is the main stem here. This is a leaf. And then this is a branch that's coming off the side. We are going to, whoops, we're going to take the leaf off in that case too. You don't necessarily need to take the leaf off. You just need to pinch off the little shoots that are coming off the sides. If you live in a climate where you have a really long growing season, you can let those side branches go to a certain extent, but you will end up with a lot more foliage and then also potentially more disease issues, because there's not a lot of airflow through the plant. So I recommend taking those side shoots off. There's another one there and another one there. We also have a branch down here touching the ground, so we're going to pull any of the weeds that I've missed as I am going through and taking care of each individual plant. I'm just going to pull those out of the ground, and we're actually going to plant a whole bunch of basil right here, but we'll do that in a minute. So we still have a few more that we can pinch off here, as you can see, being pretty aggressive. I have another branch coming off over here. So lots of tomato plants. This one is a sun gold tomato plant. Will have two main leaders, so main branches that are coming off. You can choose to take that one off if you want. I usually don't, especially when it comes to plum size or cherry size tomatoes. I will leave those ones on the plant, and then I will have to have two supports for both of those main branches. So as you can see, that plant is looking much, much better. We're going to be able to tie it on to our trellis over there. And all I use to do that is a little bit of yarn. I have been using yarn for doing tomato trellising forever. It's very gentle on the plant. When you're going to rip down your tomatoes in the fall, it just rips right off really easily. And you can just rip it apart with your hands to pull off the pieces that you need. So all we're gonna do here is tie our tomato seedling onto there like so. And that is a nicely pruned tomato. So we're going to go on to this next one. So every crook of the tomato plant is going to grow one of those little branches for the most part. So you can just go along, pop them off. You could potentially end up with sucker plants that come out from the base of your tomato plant. So pop those ones off as well. I'm going to also take these bottom branches, even though they're not touching the ground. I do like to have the bottom, I don't know, at least foot or so cleared off of branches. But because this is a fairly small plant, I want lots of photosynthesis energy going into this plant. So I'm going to leave these 2 branches here or leaves here on until the plant gets a little bigger, and then I'll pop those ones off as well. We're going to go along, do the same thing over here. So this is a little branch that's coming out between the main stem and the leaf. So we're going to pop that off. But you can see the difference here. Can you see that? How it's actually forming 2 separate leaders here. This branch is not coming out. Well, it kind of on this one, it looks like it is, but it isn't coming out between a leaf and the main stem. It's kind of forming off to 2 main stems. So I'm going to leave both of those. I showed this in a previous video, but I'm going to show it again because I just think it's so interesting. We had a really cold night down to a degree on, I think it was the day after, maybe 2 days after I had planted all my tomatoes in the high tunnel. And anywhere that wasn't close to my heaters, because I do have 2 heaters in my high tunnel, ended up with kind of interesting damage that I've never seen from cold on tomato plants before. The only damage I've ever seen on tomatoes is when frost actually gets them or they actually freeze and the leaves kind of go this dark green the next day and then just go limp and then they die. So in this case, this was different. It was like the cold kind of nipped the edges. Here, I'll pop this one off and show you. Of the tomato leaf, you can see here, and killed that part, but didn't actually freeze the entire plant. Thank goodness for that, because that would have been catastrophic. There's probably 100 tomato plants that have damage like this on. So as you can see on this tomato plant, so this is the size the plant was when that damage happened. So all these leaves have a little bit of that, but all of the new growth that's coming on the top is all healthy and fantastic. So that's what 100% confirms that that's what this issue was. When I first came in here, I honestly thought maybe it was like a chemical burn from too much fertilizer or something. But no, that was not the case. It was definitely the cold. So my plan is, as these plants grow and they form these really healthy leaves on the top, I'm going to come along and pull off all of the damaged leaves. I'm not going to bother doing that just yet because I want this plant to get a little bit bigger before I start pulling all of these ones off. So I'm not going to get to pruning all of these tomato plants and getting them trellised today because I have some bigger fish to fry, and that is actually getting some plants in the ground, both in the high tunnel and up in the main garden. So these are some little basil that should have been planted out. This is a sweet basil that should have been planted into the garden a while ago. They smell so good. So what we're gonna do here, let's pull that out and pull our little light out. Smooth out our soil. What I used to do up until a couple years ago is I would plant basil in between all my tomato plants. And tomato and basil actually grow really nicely together. They're considered a companion plant. But what I found is that I was constantly forgetting to harvest because it was kind of out of sight, out of mind. Once the tomatoes grew large, the basil was choked out a little bit, or at least it wasn't as easy to see. And I just wasn't taking advantage of all this beautiful basil that I have. So I found it a lot easier the last year or two to plant them all in one spot. Basil is another plant that I prune. I actually top my basil plants. So when they get about this big, I'm going to come along and pinch off the top here. Definitely going to take these inside. And then you can see, oh, I didn't do a very good job at that one because I pulled off the other leaf, but there's actually 2 branches that will form right there, and then that will make for a bushier plant. It'll also hold off bolting as well. So I'm going to go plant and top all these basil. It's so cool this year because I have worms in my high tunnel, and I usually don't because I have the plastic on my high tunnel all year round, so it doesn't get a chance to keep the soil moist in the winter time, and the worms do need moisture in the soil in order to survive. But this last year we had the plastic off our high tunnel for the winter, which it turns out is a really good thing for another reason as well. Someone left a comment on a video about 2 weeks ago, I think, talking about how the salinity levels of soil really increase in a high tunnel and other minerals that can actually impact the growth of your plants increase in a high tunnel if it's not exposed to the rain and the elements, because it's just the water's just flowing in here, all those minerals are accumulating and there's nowhere for them to go. So anyway, somebody left a comment, so I checked with a friend of mine who knows a lot about these sort of things, and she said that it's true, and it's recommended that every couple of years to take the plastic off your high tunnel for a season so that it has a chance for the soil to basically get cleaned. So an added benefit of having the plastic off the high tunnel last year. Okay, let me show you what else I have to deal with here. I have some artichokes. Last year was the first time that I grew artichokes, and they actually did surprisingly well in my high tunnel. However, they did attract aphids like crazy. The aphids didn't go anywhere else in my high tunnel, which was the one good thing about them being so attracted to the artichoke. So they stayed away from the peppers, and that's where they can be an issue sometimes. So what I've been pondering as I've been weeding is whether I want to put a couple in here to attract the aphids too, or whether that's stupid and I should just put them out in the main garden. So the only place that I have issues with aphids at all is in the high tunnel. I don't have issues with aphids in the main garden. And these have actually been outside growing out, like not in the greenhouse, and they have been doing quite well, all things considered, considering it's been quite cool. So I think I have about 6 or 7 of them. I think I might plant these out there instead of putting a aphid magnet in here. Yeah, that's probably what I should do. I went to the local nursery when I got all of those flowers for the planters that I planted out the other day in front of the house. And so I got some peppers to fill in a blank space. I actually did not start enough peppers this year, which kind of blows my mind because I thought I overplanted, but I underplanted. So I needed to fill out a few spaces so that I have a sweet banana pepper, giant macaroni sweet pepper, a cayenne pepper. I want to do my own version of Frank's hot sauce because that's my personal favorite kind of hot sauce. So I got a couple of different cayenne pepper plants for that. I got a sriracha hot pepper and a cayenne long thin that's been munched on by a rabbit. So we have a couple of free range rabbits that we've had down in our barn for years. And they never come in my garden. They have never come in my garden. But this year, all of a sudden, one of them has decided to come into my garden. And apparently they like peppers because they ate that one. Fortunately, they didn't eat the rest of them, so that's good. And then lastly, I have a golden cayenne. I planted melons for the first time last year, and they did really, really well. We had, I think, over 50, maybe even 60 melons that we were able to harvest and even freeze a bunch for smoothies, which was amazing. So I planted them in the corners of the high tunnel over here. So I just burned holes. I put some new weed barrier down here this year. So I burned some holes and planted them right in there, and they did great. So I want to do the same thing this year. So I planted all of my squash this year and my melons later than I usually do because we've had frost around June 10th the last couple of years. So I just didn't want to risk them getting killed off by frost. But they are looking much tinier than I'm used to them looking this time of year, obviously, since I planted them later. I gotta think this through. I bought these little plastic cloches to go over top of my sensitive plants. So what I think I might do, because I just know these are gonna do better when they're actually in the ground, is get them planted even though they're so tiny, and then put a cloche over top of them, at least at night, to keep them protected for the next couple of weeks until we're out of the woods as far as as far as the potential frost. We actually have not had frost in over 6 weeks, which I have never seen happen before. I could have planted my garden out so long ago, but I'd rather be safe than sorry and wait. But yeah, anyway, we'll get these planted. And what else do we have to plant here? I have some of those marigolds. I think I have about 6 of these very sad, very dry marigolds that I'm just going to plunk in wherever, because I absolutely adore marigolds. I thought this was going to be the year of the poppy, but it's not. It's going to be the year of the marigold because I just love them. Check out these guys. Look at that. Like, oh my goodness. These ones. They're so beautiful. Any work that I have been able to get done over the last couple of weeks has not included cleaning up after myself at all. The main garden is another example of that. So I think what we'll do though is do the same thing and just get the work done we need to get done in here and then come and clean this all up later. So let's go plant these peppers in the ground. We'll take these artichokes out, we'll put them out in the main garden. And then I did bring my ginger. I just brought this down from the little greenhouse down into here. I just think it needs a little bit more attention, and I am going to have to fertilize it because it's kind of stopped growing. It grew really well at the beginning. I transplanted it into this larger pot, and then it's just sort of stopped. You know what I'm going to do right now with this? Hang on just a sec. This is Gaia Green 444 all-purpose fertilizer, my go-to fertilizer in my garden. What I'm actually going to do here is I'm just going to scratch the surface of this soil and just kind of loosen it up a little bit. And then I'm going to sprinkle some of this fertilizer in here because I think these are just needing a little bit more nutrition. And hopefully that will give them a little bit of a boost the next time I water and kind of get them going. Again, this is my first time growing ginger, so I'm happy that I got them to this point, but I really would like to see them take off. Okay, let's deal with these. This one is the sweet banana. So all we're going to do here is dig a nice hole. We are going to add a little bit of our fertilizer in the hole, mix it in, and plunk her in the ground. Okay, we have those planted. I just heard my bees sounding a little frisky, so I'm gonna go out and check them out. It is swarm season right now, and I'm really hopeful I don't have a swarm. So those are my hives there. There's bees flying all over, and you can see they're very active. However, this is the first kind of warmish day we've had in a few days where they're being able to go out and hunt around for the nectar that they need to grow their babies that are in there. So I'm thinking that's what's happening. It's just that they're all out, and that's why I could hear them from in there. Can you guys hear them? I think bees are just the coolest thing. And something that's kind of neat is that I have been terrified, or I should say I was, because I'm not anymore, obviously, but I was terrified. And when I say terrified, I mean fully, like I would lose my mind if a bee even came near me. I started beekeeping around 12 years ago as a way to sort of face my fear, and it took, I would say, probably 6 or 7 years of working with bees to get to the point where I'm no longer afraid of bees. Wasps still freak me out. I do not like wasps flying around me, but honeybees don't bother me at all. I've actually caught, I think, probably 4 swarms over the years, and have worked with my bees without gloves on. Only one time I ever did that, but I did do it, and I just absolutely love them now. So I have 2 hives. I'm kind of hopeful. I just have to talk to my bee mentor about doing another split. So I split this one hive on this side. It was a super strong hive. I split it in half, added a new queen, and have 2 hives now. But that hive is so full of bees that I am kind of hoping to be able to do a 3rd split on it and have 3 hives. Out of the 2 hives that I had going into winter last year, only one of them made it through. So I'd really like to have 3 just so that I have a better chance of having my bees make it through. But yeah, I absolutely love them. So I was kind of hoping that we would be able to go out and do a bunch of work out in the garden together, but I think this video is probably going to go on too long. So what we're going to do is get the melons planted, and I will bring you up to the garden just to show you the disaster that is my garden, and then we'll be back together again later on in the week and we'll do some work out there, and hopefully I'll have a bunch of stuff done to show you at that point as well. I just use a little torch like this. I was so upset because I had saved northern melon seeds, which northern melons were what I grew last year that were so successful. And I had saved seed from my melons. And do you think that I could have found those seeds when I went to plant melons? No, I could not. I looked everywhere. I have no idea where they ended up. But needless to say, I don't have any northern melons this year, which is kind of a bummer. Hopefully I'll be able to find them in a local nursery, but they're not super easy seed to find. So I'm really hoping that they're going to show up in my house at some point. But we do have these guys, which are early champ melons. So hopefully they will be as good. We have Iroquois cantaloupe, which is supposed to be another northern variety of melon. Oh, this is a Socrates. This is a northern cucumber, so I'm going to plant this down there on the trellis. But we also have a Cal-Sweet watermelon, another northern one that's supposed to do well in the north, and then Sugar Baby watermelon. So we're going to go plant the watermelons on the other side. I am really regretting not starting the melons earlier, but that's okay. So you may be asking yourself, why the heck am I planting so many in such a small space? I actually did this last year as far as plant spacing, and it worked great. It does kind of spread out all over the entrance part of the high tunnel, but that's fine. So I just bought these. I bought 100 of them from a company. I think it was on Instagram, like an Instagram ad that came across my feed or something like that. So I don't know the name of the company. And to be honest, they're really thin plastic. So unless you took really good care of them, I don't think they're going to last very long. So I probably wouldn't recommend these specific ones. But something like this, I think, would work really well. Right on top of our little guys, like so. Give them a little bit of extra protection from the cold temperatures. We're going to throw my sweater back on, and then we'll head out to the garden. And I'll show you what I'm dealing with up there. Oh, it's so bad. Some zinnia that really, really need to get planted. I have some pincushion flowers over here looking so sad. I have an entire tray of anemones over here that also need to be planted really badly. I'm gonna actually put these up by the house. So yeah, gotta do that right away. All of our squash here looking okay, not great, but okay. More over here. We have some corn. We have some marigolds that these ones actually did get a little bit of frost, but they came back just fine. We got some purpling here. That's a stress reaction. These need to get in the ground. We have some more corn here that needs to get planted. We planted close to 1,000 more onions up in the crop garden, which is up over there. We also did get it fenced with electric fence. We were planning on doing page wire fencing, which we still are planning on doing, but it's so busy right now that we decided we would just slap the electric up. That's to keep the sheep out, and my sheep free range up in this area here. So that'll keep them out of there. So we have somewhere around 1,000 onions. I already had 500 planted in this row back here, but I was happy to get those in the ground because they were looking so sad. Keep your stuff in containers for too long and then put it in the ground. This is baby pak choi, and it bolted, I think, the next day. It didn't help that it got super hot the day after I planted these in the ground, but this is the risk you run by leaving your seedlings in their little containers for too long. So I'm just gonna let these flower here for the next couple of days, and then I'm gonna fill this space up with some lettuce. We have our fennel over here that is being munched on by that rabbit that I was telling you about. Our celery is looking okay over here. These are the lettuces that I have to fill out that space where the baby pak choi was. I don't think I've ever had so many weeds in my garlic before. I have a couple of rows that are ready for planting. I'm putting carrots in this row, this whole entire row. Up at the top, there's leeks that I planted. And then this, I have sunflowers, assorted sunflowers along the back. And then I have zinnia across the front. I did this last year, except I also put cosmos in this bed as well. And I planted the sunflowers way more closely together, and they ended up falling down. There just wasn't enough space for strong root growth to happen, so they fell down in the wind. At least that's what I think happened. They just woke up one morning and a whole bunch of them had fallen over. So I planted less densely in here, but I decided to keep this bed like this because I just loved being up in the main garden up over this way and then looking down and seeing this wall of color down here. So I did it again, but better this time. One lowly little bit of onions left that we did not plant. So, you know, the actual little onion balls down there, can you see that? Little bulbs look okay. So maybe I'll give this a soak and go throw them in the ground. So I am going to have to take care of that too. I mean, I have a lot that I'm going to need to take care of. There's just no getting around it. Once my onions that are back behind me here get a little bit bigger, I'll be mulching those with grass clippings. I love using grass clippings for mulching. Just be sure that if you're using grass clippings that you don't have a bunch of grass, either seed or sunflower or dandelion seed or anything like that in your clippings, because then you'll inculcate your garden with all kinds of weeds. All right, friends, that is going to be it for me today. I hope that you enjoyed hanging out with me in the garden and the greenhouse, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.